The Pirate King, Chapter 4, Keller. By the end of his first week, Sam Jensen had already learned something important about the IT crime division. The cases weren't the hardest part, the people were. Not in the way patrol had been, where everything was loud, unpredictable, and out in the open. This was different, quieter, controlled, and measured in a way that felt deliberate rather than natural. Conversations didn't carry the same way here. You didn't hear everything, and you weren't supposed to. People said less, but what they did say carried more weight, like every word had already been thought through before it was spoken. Some of them watched more than they spoke, and that part mattered more than anything else. He noticed that early, not just the talking, but the absence of it. The way silence worked in this room was empty. It was selective, intentional. He noticed the ones who leaned back and let the room talk, saying nothing until it mattered. He noticed the ones who leaned forward just enough to show they were listening without drawing attention to it. The ones who asked questions and the ones who didn't need to. The ones who stayed locked on their screens, and the ones who seemed more interested in watching everyone else instead. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't something you could point out. But it was there. And once you saw it, you couldn't really unsee it. What stood out more than anything wasn't what people said. It's what they chose not to. He really felt that during a briefing on a late Friday afternoon. The room wasn't full, just a handful of analysts, a couple of investigators, and Harris standing near the board going over case updates. Screens lined the walls, glowing softly as data shifted in slow, constant motion. Lines of code rolled, logs refreshed, numbers updated in quiet cycles that never seemed to stop. And even when no one spoke, the room never felt still. It felt like something was always happening just beneath the surface, something you weren't fully seeing yet, but were expected to understand anyway. Sam sat near the back listening, still getting used to the way the information moved in this place. It wasn't handed to you. No one slowed down to make sure you understood something. Nobody circled back to fill in gaps. You either kept up or you didn't. And if you didn't, somebody above you was going to say it out loud. Harris finished one case and moved to the next. Fraud network, out of state, low priority, he said, tapping on the board once, passing it on. A few people made notes. Nothing urgent. No one pushed back. No one asked questions. Sam remembered that on patrol, no questions usually meant nobody cared. Here, it felt like the opposite. Harris shifted slightly, almost reluctant to move on, then paused. Next, we've got continued activity across multiple channels tied to... He stopped just short of finishing the sentence, and even that brief hesitation was enough to shift something in the room. Not visibly, not dramatically, but enough that you could feel it if you weren't paying attention. Sam was. Harris continued, what people call the Pirate King. No one laughed. No one dismissed it. No one even looked confused. But the attention in the room sharpened immediately. People who had been writing looked up, not quickly, not obviously, just enough to show they were listening more closely than before. Sam leaned forward slightly without realizing it. Still fragmented, Harris continued. No central point of failure identified. Patterns are consistent, but incomplete. We're observing, not engaging. Observing didn't sit right with Sam, not fully. Not the way it was said. On patrol, it meant you were already behind. Here, it sounded intentional, and that was the part he couldn't shake. Before he could decide whether to speak, the door opened, and this time the shift was real. A man stepped in without rushing, without announcing himself, and without asking for permission. He didn't hesitate in the doorway or look around to orient himself. He just walked in the room already belonged to him, and the room adjusted around him without anyone being told to. "Go on," the man said calmly, his voice not loud but carrying cleanly across the room. Harris straightened slightly, not nervous, just aware. "Yes, sir." Sam glanced around the room and could tell immediately everyone knew who this was. You could see it in the way people wouldn't look directly at him, but still knew exactly where he was, and the way the room didn't freeze but definitely shifted. He noticed the ones who leaned back and let the room talk, saying nothing until it mattered. He noticed the ones who leaned forward just enough to show they were listening without drawing attention to it. The ones who asked questions, and the ones who didn't need to. The ones who stayed locked on their screens, and the ones who seemed more interested in watching everyone else instead. Except him. Harris wrapped up quickly now, trimming the update down without being told to. When he finished, the man stepped forward, hands loose at his sides, posture relaxed in a way that didn't feel relaxed at all. His eyes moved across the room slowly, not scanning so much as measuring, taking something in from each person whether they realized it or not. When those eyes landed on Sam, they stayed there just a second longer than necessary. "New," the man said. Sam nodded. "Yes, sir." The man studied him briefly, then gave a faint, almost smug look. "Keller, assistant director." Sam straightened slightly. "Jensen." "I know," Keller said, and that landed differently than it should have. There was no reason for it, but it did. Keller turned back to the room. "This isn't a mythology discussion. I don't care what people are calling it. I care about results." No one spoke. He walked slowly forward toward the board. If something exists, it can be found. If it can be found, it can be dismantled. And if it can't, he let the rest hang there, unfinished and unnecessary to complete. Sam watched him carefully. There was something about the way Keller spoke. Not loud, not aggressive, not even traditionally intimidating, but controlled. Everything about him felt measured and intentional, like nothing he said or didn't say was accidental. Too controlled. "This operation has gone on long enough without resolution," Keller continued. "That changes today." Sam looked around the silent room. No one reacted. No one questioned it. That didn't sit right with him. He leaned forward slightly. "What's the current priority level?" The room went still again, not tense, not shocked, just aware. Harris glanced at him. Keller turned his head slowly, and his eyes fell on Sam, that same faint expression returning. "Rookie." "Yes, sir. Then learn the room before you try to lead it." Sam didn't react outwardly, but he didn't back down either. "With respect, I'm trying to understand the scope." Keller held his gaze for a moment longer, then nodded once. "Fair enough." He turned back to the board. "The scope is that this has already wasted too much time." Sam frowned slightly. That wasn't an answer. Keller stepped forward, hands moving behind his back. "For now, you observe, you learn, and you follow direction." Again, his eyes returned to Sam. That includes you, Jensen. Sam gave a small nod. Understood. But it still didn't sit right. Not the answer, not the tone, not the way Keller had looked at him before he even spoke, and definitely not the way everyone else in the room seemed to accept it without question. The meeting ended with a formal dismissal. People moved out quickly, conversations low and brief, no one lingering longer than they had to. Sam stayed back for a moment, watching, trying to place what he had just seen. Harris noticed. "You'll get used to him," he said. Sam shook his head slightly. "I don't think that's the problem." Harris gave a small look. "It usually is." Sam glanced toward the door Keller had come through. "What's his deal?" Harris didn't answer right away, then said, "He gets results." Sam looked back at him. "That's not what I asked." Harris met his eyes. "That's the only answer that matters here." Sam held his gaze for a second longer than he needed to, then gave a small nod like the answer had landed, even though it hadn't. That was the part that stuck with him. Not what Harris said, but how easily it closed the conversation. Like there were lines you didn't cross here, not because you couldn't, but because everyone else had already decided not to. He glanced around the room again, slower this time, watching the way people moved, the way they avoided certain topics without being told to, the way things just stopped when they were supposed to. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was something cleaner than that, more controlled, like everyone understood where the boundaries were without needing them explained. He didn't like that because on patrol you pushed until you got an answer. You kept asking, kept digging, kept pressing until something gave. That was the job. That was how things moved forward. Here, it felt like the opposite. Like the more important something was, the less anyone wanted to touch it directly. His eyes drifted back toward the board where Harris had been standing, the last traces of briefings still sitting there in fragmented notes and partial data. The Pirate King. It was still there, even after everyone had moved on, sitting in the background like something unfinished on purpose. He let a slow breath and straightened slightly, like he was settling into something he hadn't fully decided yet. "Yeah," he muttered under his breath, because even though they told him to leave it alone, he knew he couldn't. That night the shop felt quieter than usual, not empty, just settled in a way that made every small sound stand out more. DJ was in the back organizing something on a shelf when Sam walked in. He listened to the soft scrape of the cardstock zipping through the printers, carrying through the room. "You're late," DJ said without turning around. "Yeah. Long day?" "Something like that." DJ stepped out front, wiping his hands on a rag before setting it down, looking at Sam just long enough to read something Sam hadn't said yet. "You've got that look again," he said. "What look?" "The one where something doesn't add up." Sam let out a small breath. "Met someone today." DJ raised an eyebrow slightly. "That good or bad?" "Too early to tell." "That usually means bad." Sam gave a faint smirk. "Yeah." He leaned back against the counter for a second. "Assistant Director Keller." For a brief moment, DJ didn't respond right away. No quick comment, no follow-up, nothing. And Sam noticed. "You know him?" Sam asked. DJ paused for a few seconds, then shook his head once. "No." The answer was short. Too short. Sam studied him. "You sure?" DJ met his eyes. I'm sure I don't like the sound of them. Sam's eyebrows crinkled slightly. You've never met him. Don't need to, DJ said. You can tell a lot about someone just by their name. Sam almost laughed. That's not exactly scientific. DJ smirked. Neither is instinct, but it works. Sam shook his head, but something about it stuck. The whole day stuck. Keller, the room, the Pirate King, and the way everyone reacted without reacting. It all felt connected, just not in a way he could see. Behind them, in the corner, the door sat exactly where it always had, closed, locked, unchanged, blending into the background like it always did. Sam's eyes drifted toward it for just a second, then away, because whatever was behind it didn't matter to him. For now. Coming soon, The Pirate King Chapter 5, Curiosity.